While browsing a second-hand shop, I spotted a stunning blue dress that seemed to be my size. Finding something that fits well isn't easy for me, given that I'm 6 feet 3 inches and nearly 300 pounds, not to mention the fact that I'm male. These factors typically make it challenging to find something that feels both pretty and feminine. However, since I was young, I've been fascinated by dresses. The soft fabrics, the pleasing colors, and the intricate patterns always drew me in. The simple blue dress in front of me was too inviting to pass up. I walked over to the rack and ran my hand along the silky fabric, knowing right away that this dress was meant for me. After confirming the size, 28, I headed to the cashier, paid, and took it home, eager to try it on. Back at home, I hurried to my room, avoiding my mother's calls for a few moments so I could stash my new purchase. I've been living with my mother for the past few years, helping her out with tasks that her arthritis makes difficult. At just under 30 years old, I still assist her around the house. I did some laundry, prepared for work the next day, and then retreated to my sanctuary, my bedroom. In my room, I went through my carefully built-up feminine wardrobe, keeping my cross-dressing habits hidden from my mother, as she's very close-minded about such things. I pulled out my black nylon bra and panty set, along with the breast forms I keep in a box on the closet shelf. After laying everything out on the bed, I shaved and took a nice, warm shower to freshen up. Afterward, I treated myself to a relaxing bath with some oils I'd gotten from Victoria's Secret while shopping for my mother's Christmas gift. I emerged from the bath feeling incredibly feminine. Wrapped in a towel, I crossed the hall to my room, smiling at my reflection in the mirror. I locked the door and tossed the towel aside, reaching for my final foundation garment, a sleek purple nylon slip. I carefully dressed, then pulled out the new dress from my closet. It was on a padded hanger, and as I stepped into it, I worked it up over my belly, slipping my arms into the short sleeves, which fit better than long sleeves usually do on me due to my proportions. After zipping up the dress, I paused. A sudden wave of nausea hit me. Looking around the room, I noticed everything appeared slightly larger than before, subtle, but noticeable. That's when I glanced at the mirror mounted behind the door, and the reflection staring back was nothing short of breathtaking. I had transformed into one of the most stunning young women I had ever seen. At that moment, I realized my initial thoughts had been right, something had changed, but I was more intrigued by how it had happened. I confirmed my new form by touching my body and stepping out into the hall. Not only did I feel smaller, but my clothes had perfectly adjusted to my new shape. The heels on my feet were surprisingly comfortable, and my hair, now long enough to fall to my waist, was beautifully curly. As I walked through the hall, the mirror at the end displayed my new supermodel physique. I moved confidently, a smile on my face, feeling the shimmer of my clip-on earrings and dainty gold necklace, which disappeared into the neckline of my dress. My nails were also impeccably manicured, painted a bright red, contrasting with the stubby nails I once had. I walked into the bathroom, the satisfying click of my heels echoing on the polished tiles. I needed to see my face up close in better light than the dim bulb in my bedroom or the harsh hallway light. The fluorescent lights in the bathroom flickered to life as I approached the small counter by the sink. Leaning in close to the mirror, I took in my new reflection. I couldn't help but admire the soft curves of my chest. Then, I focused on my face, which now held a femininity I could only have dreamed of. My lips were full and inviting, with a sweet, subtle smile revealing a hint of dimpled cheeks. My eyes, once a pale blue, had deepened to a rich, captivating hue, and my lashes had lengthened dramatically, curling upwards towards my perfectly arched eyebrows. Even my teeth, once stained by the result of a foolish summer camp dare, were now flawlessly white, bright, and perfectly shaped. I walked back to my bedroom to grab my purse and wallet, curious to see how far the changes extended. While my bedroom remained unchanged, I could tell that my appearance had transformed. I pulled out my wallet, retrieved my driver's license, and immediately noticed the differences. My name and social security number were still the same, as were my blonde hair and blue eyes, though my hair had lightened a bit and my eyes darkened. What stood out most was the height listed, 5 feet 8 inches, and my weight, now only 116 pounds. The biggest surprise was my age, still nearly 30, which made me chuckle for a moment. I slipped my ID back into my wallet, added my keys and some makeup from my hidden stash of feminine accessories, and spritzed myself with perfume. After a few moments of gathering my courage, I decided to go out. I drove to the nearest mall, a mile and a half away, and parked in a distant corner to get in some extra walking. After all, I had to keep an eye on my new, girlish figure. I entered the mall through the food court entrance, where the largest crowd of people gathered. I was curious to see how they would react to my new appearance. As I approached the mall doors, a man exiting held them open for me, giving me a polite wave and a slight bow. I smiled brightly and thanked him as I walked through. The concierge desk was ahead in the short hallway between the doors and the food court, and I slowed my pace, casually glancing through the windows of the restaurants on either side of me. It didn't take long for me to notice men staring, admiration evident in their eyes, a few even caught off guard by the sight of me. As I passed the desk, the clerk smiled and greeted me warmly, offering to help. I politely declined and was pleasantly surprised by how my voice sounded, hot and melodic. I couldn't help but wonder how it would sound if I sang. The clerk handed me a business card, scribbling something on the back and saying that I should call her if I ever needed anything. In return, I offered my name and number, suggesting that we meet outside of work sometime. She blushed a cute shade of red, and I could tell I'd left a lasting impression. I glanced at the phone number she had written before teasingly slipping it into my bra cup. She gasped in surprise, and I simply smiled, explaining, "This way, I won't lose it." As I continued walking through the mall, I was surprised at how effortlessly I was embracing my new, feminine demeanor, even flirtatiously so. I'd always been a flirt with women, and it seemed like I was still just as playful, though this time, I genuinely hoped that when I took off this dress, I'd return to my old self. But for now, I decided to enjoy the moment and have fun browsing the stores. As I looked at my wrist for the time, I realized I hadn't bought a proper watch to go with my outfits. I approached a young man nearby and asked him politely what time it was. He smiled warmly, checked his watch, and gave me the time. Then, he grew a bit bolder and asked if I was waiting for my boyfriend. I blushed slightly and replied that I wasn't. He followed up by asking if I had any plans for the evening, since it was about an hour before the mall closed. I shook my head, and he asked if I'd be interested in having dinner with him. I considered it for a moment before deciding I could always use a free meal, as long as there were no strings attached. He agreed, explaining that he just wanted the chance to get to know a pretty woman like me. He offered his arm, and I accepted, linking my arm with his as we walked out of the mall to his car. He drove me to my car, and from there, we went to a nearby Denny's, where we had agreed to meet. Ethan, my escort, was waiting at the door when I arrived, and we grabbed a booth. I ordered an iced tea, and he ordered a couple of appetizers and coffee. We spent the next couple of hours talking and getting to know each other. I shared some details about my life, including how some of my gender-specific experiences had shifted, like the Boy Scouts becoming Girl Scouts. I referred to my boyhood as my childhood. We had a lot in common and exchanged personal stories, and he admitted that he was attracted to me as a person. By the end of the evening, he offered me his number, and I gave him mine as well. I told him I'd like to see him again as a friend, but that any potential romance would have to grow from a strong friendship. To my surprise, he agreed, saying it was good we weren't rushing into anything. He explained that his last relationship had ended abruptly after a short time, leaving him emotionally scarred. We parted with a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and I drove home, noticing that the lights were off, which meant either my mom was asleep or out. I circled the parking complex to check if her car was there and parked by the nearest entrance to avoid making noise with my heels. I walked quietly to the door, unlocked it, and entered the dark room. I turned on the outside light and locked the door behind me out of habit. The living room light illuminated the small dining area, signaling the familiar solitude of the evening. On the table was a note saying that my mom had gone to one of the local casinos for the evening and wouldn't be home until late. After tossing a few items from the washing machine into the dryer, I headed to my bedroom. I glanced at my collection of feminine clothes hanging and stored in boxes, then muttered to myself that I might as well see if I change back by removing the dress. I slowly unzipped the dress and worked it off my body, leaving me standing in just a bra, panties, slip, garter belt, shoes, and jewelry. Yet, underneath all of it, I still looked completely feminine. Before I continued, I decided to slip Joan's business card into my purse. It seemed she might be an interesting potential girlfriend, especially if this feminine transformation turned out to be permanent. I hung up the dress, then decided a shower was in order before heading to bed for the night. I quickly undressed, standing in front of the mirror, still wearing my necklace and earrings, admiring the feminine figure I had become. I removed my earrings and placed them in my makeshift jewelry box, which was actually an old tackle box. Fishing was never my thing. I reached to unclasp my necklace and put it away too. But the moment the chain came off my neck, another wave of nausea hit me. As my male hands finished putting the necklace away, a smile spread across my face at the thought of my male body with all its undesirable qualities. After a shower, I was in bed well before my mom returned from the casino. My dreams were filled with fantasies of Ethan and Joan, and I imagined myself as their girlfriend. In one dream, I was a bride to both of them in a three-way wedding, marrying Joan first, then Ethan, promising to love each of them as a proper wife should. The next day at work, I received messages from both Ethan and Joan asking me to call them back when I had the chance. My fantasies about both of them nearly drove me to distraction as I went about my duties. When I got home, I had about a half hour before my mom arrived. I quickly stripped off my clothes and put on my blue dress, dialing as the familiar wave of nausea passed, letting my sexy, sultry side out. I had to split my time between the two suitors, one wanting to meet tonight and the other over the weekend. I told Ethan that I already had plans with Joan for this weekend but could meet him next weekend. Joan wanted to take me shopping at the mall after hours for an employees-only sale. I agreed, saying I could use a few new outfits for my wardrobe. She was excited to see me and I could hear the enthusiasm in her voice. I ended the call just before my mom usually gets home. I quickly stripped off the dress, returning to my male form, threw on a pair of shorts, and hung up the dress again. Shaking my head in disbelief, I realized I had a date with a girl, a shopping date as a girl, no less. What happens after, though, is anyone's guess. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for early access and exclusive content.